Well, good evening, WNBA and women's basketball fans, and welcome back into the WNBA 365 Network, your 24/7 365 comprehensive home for everything revolving around the WNBA and the remainder of the women's basketball universe as we come your way again with a three-person show this evening again with the same three that you saw last night back in here again on tonight's edition of WNBA 365. Good evening, folks. Alongside, of course, our two other Southern California correspondents in the Hangout, Crystal Thomas, and rocking a pretty sweet hat for Halloween. These two are both up in Los Angeles. And the wannabe Canadian down here in San Diego, Cal McClure, joining you folks here from Studio 171 in San Diego in what will be my 2015 Halloween costume, going as, in my opinion, the actual GOAT of the NBA point guard position, and the guy that got me into the sport of basketball when I was 6 years old. The one and only Steve Nash is my Halloween get-up for 2015. Ladies, good evening, and how's it going tonight?
Hello, hello.
Hey there, everyone. I'm good. Still battling the code, but I'm ready to roll.
With that, folks, again, go ahead, say that again.
I didn't get the memo for the whole Halloween thing. I feel left out.
Well, no need to feel bad. I mean, a lot of times people don't get the memo. Sometimes when the show goes on the air. So with that, we'll kind of let it slide. But either way, though, guys, obviously a bit of a light night tonight on the program, but we will be here though for the next hour. But again, folks, we want to re-inform you of what is going to be taking place next Thursday and Friday with the program again. I will be up in Los Angeles, up in Shorty and Crystal's neck of the woods. I will be at the Lux Center City Hotel for a 2-day broadcasting workshop and convention being hosted by many great ESPN and Fox Sports analysts next Friday and Saturday, but I will be up there on Thursday, and Friday we'll again have the show live in Los Angeles and out of studio here, but we'll be again back up in Los Angeles next Thursday and Friday. Showtimes again right now. To be determined right now at this point in time, and it'll depend on what time I get up to LA and get checked in and get settled. And, of course, it will also depend on what time I will get out of the first day of the workshop, again, in Los Angeles. But, again, folks, we will be, again, in L.A. next Thursday and Friday night for more programming next week. And also, as well, wanted to tell you folks, but, again, we will also be off tomorrow, and we'll be back with you folks again on Monday. And then we will go from there with the remainder of our week. With that, though, guys, the first preseason poll for the 2015 and 16 women's college basketball season was released earlier today by the USA Today. The rankings go as follows. The top 5 schools getting votes for the 1 through 5 slots include Connecticut at number 1 with 32 first-place votes, followed by South Carolina, Notre Dame, Tennessee, and Baylor 1 through 5. Maryland, Florida State, Louisville, Oregon State, and Ohio State 6 through 10. Texas, Duke, Mississippi State, Stanford, and Arizona State at 11 through 15, and Texas A&M, Kentucky, Oklahoma, South Florida, and North Carolina 16 through 20. And at the bottom half of the rankings, George Washington, DePaul, Iowa, Northwestern, and Princeton 21 through 25. Shorty, starting with you here. Obviously, we all three of us know, and I think everyone in the women's basketball world knows that UConn, of course, is going to naturally be the number 1 team to get to start off the preseason rankings, of course, at number 1. Again, 32 first-place votes for the Huskies. Shorty, after that, though, again, you got South Carolina, Notre Dame, and Tennessee, and Baylor to round up the top 5. Shorty, what are your early thoughts about the first poll for the 15 and 16 women's basketball college campaign, and why?
After hearing those rankings, I pretty much agree with how every other team was ranked. I know a lot of biased fans are going to look at that poll and go crazy and be like, oh no, we deserve higher, and some teams that are ranked higher, and I mean, in some teams that are ranked lower, I mean, gonna complain about not being high enough or whatever. I mean, but that's just how polls go in everything. So I definitely agree with how everything was ranked, especially at UConn being number 1. Without a doubt, they're taking it all, just plain and simple.
Crystal, pretty interesting again. probably not surprised that you'd see those top 5 teams again between UConn, South Carolina, Notre Dame, Tennessee, and Baylor in the top 5. Of course, all those clubs, all those teams, I should say, again, got some pretty hefty votes for the top 5 spot. Crystal, any thoughts about the top 25 for preseason and why?
Well, I'm going to go with my rocker here. And because I'm a huge Don Staley fan, they're winning it all this year. Everybody, I said it, USC, and I don't mean Southern California, I mean South Carolina. They win it all this year. I'm telling you, watch. You can favorite that, record it, whatever you can. I'm telling you, they're going to win it. But I think the rankings are pretty accurate. I do feel, however, Maryland should be higher. Maryland should probably take Baylor's spot because Baylor hasn't really been impressive over the last few years since they lost Brittany Griner. But I agree. I can agree with the.
Shorty, there's one school, though, that I kind of have some second thoughts about being in the top 25, and I'm looking right at them at number 20. That is UNC, who, as we know, have had a pretty big whirlwind going on with a pretty big academic scandal right now at UNC. You saw a lot of faces transfer out of the university because of what was going on, including probably notably including Jessica Washington, who bolted UNC for the likes of Kansas. Shorty, what does a scandal like this really do for a athletic program? I know that we've got one going on with the men with Louisville and Rick Pitino, allegedly taking escorts during a few of their games off the court, with some of the players getting involved with some ladies off the floor. But Shorty, what does a scandal in your mind really do, though, for a program at any university in any sport? What does a scandal really do in your mind that it really hurts the team? Your thoughts about that and why?
I mean, a scandal to the caliber of, what happened at UNC, I mean, it was devastating. Not just because a story came out, but you got top players bolting. I mean, talk about, Jessica Washington, but way before her, Diamond DeShields knew something that we all didn't, because she was the first person to bolt out of there, and she got so much criticism, as to why she left. But after seeing, what has unfolded since, now it makes sense. And not only talk about players, you talk about assistant coaches. Ivory Lotta, ran for the exit as well. So whatever happened at UNC must have been really bad for players and assistant coaches to pretty much get the hell out of Dodge.
Crystal, obviously, I didn't go to a four-year university to obtain my degree in broadcasting. I went to, a school specifically designed for broadcasting. And, honestly, being a part of teams where I had teammates or even myself being academically knowledgeable, I know it hurts. But at the same time, though, Crystal, how damaging, though, is it, though, for a university as a whole that they have some type of scandal that hurts their athletic programs, whether it's teams vacating, national titles or conference championship wins, and obviously, as we had talked about, of course, Diamond DeShields kind of was the first domino that really fell for the Tar Heels, that we didn't know what was going on until you saw her bolt for Tennessee. She had to take, of course, a year off because of her transferring during the course of the semester and school year. But Crystal, what does this scandal in your mind really do, though? How does it, in your mind, how does it hurt UNC going forward for the entire season?
I mean, it hurts UNC a lot. Not only do you lose a star player, but if the NCAA wanted to, they could probably use scholarships for this. And I don't know if they have talked about that or not. I'm not sure, but it hurts a lot. I mean, you lose a player like Diamond DeShields to go to Tennessee, who's already dominant. Now you're just adding an extra piece. I mean, I don't know if they're going to win a national title, but they're definitely making it to the Final Four. I mean, you have when you lose players and then you lose a coach like Ivy Lotta. I mean, now that you know that's a pretty big deal. And like I said, we'll see. I don't know. I don't see UNC going that far because of it.
Tanisha, obviously this is a new era and new chapter for the women's basketball games. As we all had articulated a couple weeks ago, again, this is the first year of the brand new game format of a WNBA and FIBA system of 4 10-minute quarters with one less media time, as Eric had brought up a couple weeks ago. Shorty, I know that we're all intrigued to see this, but Shorty, as we all said, long overdue, though. But Shorty, as well, in your mind, how does the format change kind of affect the women's game going forward? We're no longer under the former 220 format. How does the change, in your mind, benefit the women's game going forward, and why?
I mean, I assume for like the first couple of weeks, it's going to take, players and even coaches some time to adjust to the new format. But when they get the hang of things, I think, things will start running pretty smoothly. And they'll all, be adjusted to the new format. And, like we talked about in the previous show, I mean, it will definitely help, the college players better adapt to the pro league when they get into the WNBA or play overseas in EuroLeague. It will definitely, improve their game going forward.
All right, folks, real quick. Crystal Thomas had to exit real quick. She'll be back in momentarily. Tanisha, as we said, though, again, obviously, I will agree, though. It's going to take, about a week or so for everyone to kind of get get acclimated to the new system. Like I brought, though, too, again, out of everyone in the Hangout and on the broadcast team, again, I'm the one most affected by this, again, because I do, again, announce and cover Division II hoops down here at Point Loma Nazarene University in San Diego. And I think, though, that as we all said, though, long overdue, yes, but again, though, I think that as we had talked about again with Gino Ariema, again, really pushing to get the new system in place. We go down to Crystal. So, Crystal, again, we were, again, talking about, again, first year under the new 4-10 system, again, for the game format, again, one less media timeout as well. Crystal, in your mind, though, how long do you think it's going to take for folks to kind of get acclimated to this new system, again, where it's now 4-10 and no longer 220? Your thoughts and why?
First of all, sorry for the technical difficulty. And second, I don't think it's going to take people that long. I don't think it's going to take watchers of the WNBA that long to get used to it. I feel like it's better. They, for some of these players who want to go to the next level, I think them getting acclimated to the 4-quarter rule right now would be way better than when they get to the pro when they start off slow.
Tanisha, before we wrap up and move on to our more important, the bigger story on our table again, which is our recap of the Tulsa Shock season. Shorty, as you kind of think of all 25 teams in here, Shorty, what team in this poll do you think is probably, the most intriguing, other than maybe the top 5 teams in this top 25 field, and why?
Most intriguing. That's interesting. Personally, I do want to see what Cal's going to do, especially now that they're going to be post Brittany Boyd and Rashonda Gray era. So that'll be intriguing to see. Princeton, I think they were last season's Cinderella team. They'll be another interesting team to see, and also Texas. Amani McGee Stafford will become a draft pick next season, so I definitely want to see what she's going to do in her senior year, and where she's going to rank in the draft next year. But yeah, those are the teams that's going to interest me for this coming up season.
Crystal, other than anyone in the top 5, again, excluding UConn, South Carolina, Notre Dame, Tennessee, and Baylor, in the bottom half of the field below the top 5, which team in your mind is most intriguing in your mind to watch this season, and why?
Well, you took out one of my teams, so I can't say them. I'm going to have to say Maryland, and possibly Creighton. Maryland, because Brenda Fries is an outstanding coach. I love what she does with Maryland. They should have, in my eyes, they should have went to the Final Four last year. And Creighton, I mean, just to see something new, why not? Just spice things up a bit. Why can't we have fun? I mean, I'm tired of seeing the same teams. Go for it. Go for it, Creighton.
Now, I think all three of us agree, though, that I think we're much like the format changing. We're long overdue for some fresh blood in the tournament as well. I think and Crystal was floating ever so closely to the top 5. Again, Maryland ranked 6th. Baylor was number 5 again, and in the top 20 in the top 5 poll, but top 25 for the coaches poll. Guys, looking at the bottom half of the field, other than the top 5, 2 teams are ranked 14 and 15. That'd be Stanford and Arizona State are 2 teams I'm keeping a very small eye on and keeping one eye over there in Phoenix and one eye over up there at Maples Pavilion. Of course, Stanford's always been, a hub for Pac-12 talent, of course, between Candace Wiggins and, of course, Nneka and Shanae Agumike is like the three most notable, and, of course, Jana Pell as well during that time. And, guys, I think, though, that Arizona State was also a team that everyone kind of had off the radar, that they kind of surprised a few people with their tournament run last year, did pretty well during that time. So, again, I've got my one eye in Tempe, I should say, on the Sun Devils, and one eye up north in Palo Alto with the Stanford Cardinal. By the way, guys, other teams that got votes for the top 25 poll go as follows, with Michigan State, Dayton, Florida Gulf Coast, Gonzaga, Rutgers, Syracuse, Chattanooga, St. John's, Cal, UCLA, Iowa State, LSU, Miami, Florida, Nebraska, Seton Hall, Middle Tennessee State, Washington, West Virginia, Villanova, Virginia, Arkansas, Little Rock, Arkansas State, Green Bay, Albany, Brigham Young University, and James Madison. The teams that fell out of the top 25 rankings from last year, guys, was Dayton at 17, Gonzaga at 19, Florida Gulf Coast at 21, and Rutgers at 23. So, Shorty, I know that was a laundry list of teams, though. But, Shorty, other than everyone in the top 25, which team not in the rankings that I name dropped during that other receiving votes, what school in that category kind of intrigues you for the season, and why?
Comes to my mind. I mean, I'm surprised that they dropped out of the top 25. They busted my bracket this past season. So I'm surprised that they dropped out of the top 25 ranking, but I think they'll come back and prove themselves this upcoming season.
Okay, Crystal, out of all the teams I listed, again, that got votes but did not crack a top 25 list, which school in your mind is the most intriguing to watch out of the schools that did not qualify for top 25 ranking, and why?
When it comes to the team I'm about to say, if you mean intriguing, do you mean intriguing in a good way or a bad way?
It could be either way. Well, it's whatever you got.
Well, I'm going to say Rutgers because they haven't really been the same. They're kind of intriguing in a bad way. I'm not sure if I would have voted for them. I know why. I mean, they have a Hall of Fame coach. You can't really count them out. But lately, Rutgers hasn't really been the Rutgers of old. So I would say that is the most intriguing team in a bad way. And like Shorty said, Dayton. I actually had Dayton winning. I think I was the only one. But Dayton's a surprise. Dayton's a team you have to watch.
Crystal, I'm glad you brought up the point, though, about C. Vivian Stringer. I was able to see her photo up in the Basketball Hall of Fame in Springfield a few months ago. I was back east on my little vacation to New York and Connecticut and Massachusetts while I was back there. I would agree, though, that as I had mentioned about Stanford and even Tennessee, that they have not been the same since players left, and of course with Tennessee, of course with Pat Summitt, of course, due to health issues, again resigning. Still, though, on the coaching staff for Holly Warlick, though. But Crystal, I would agree, though, that Tennessee, Stanford under Tara Vanderveer, and also even as we get brought up, though, as well with Rutgers. I mean, they have those are three schools that have produced a lot of great talent, but have not had a lot of return on their dollar ever since. A lot of notable names passed through the program and went on to bigger and better endeavors for those players. And again, I think that those are three teams that, just have not had the best of luck, I guess, ever since a few very key components to their teams all left campus. With that, guys, we will segue away from the college ranks back to the WNBA and talk about tonight's featured team, which will be the number 6 pick in the draft this year, which is the Tulsa, soon-to-be Dallas WNBA franchise, a.k.a. the Tulsa Shock. Guys, coming off of a 18-16 season, a third-place finish, but an ultimate 2-game sweep at the hands of the Phoenix Mercury in pretty convincing fashion in Game 1 in Phoenix, and also a Game 2 victory as well in Tulsa a couple days later. Shorty, obviously, the big talking point, as we had brought up a bit earlier on in the offseason, as well, and even just recently here a few weeks ago as well, is the unfortunate incident involving Tulsa Shock forward Glory Johnson and Phoenix Mercury star center Brittany Griner, again with their pretty intense news story, again which included a pretty ugly altercation at their home in Goodyear, Arizona, with both of them being arrested on a pretty on a pretty big list of charges, and also Glory Johnson announcing that she missed the whole season due to pregnancy. Shorty, in your mind, obviously, know that we've had to kind of throw the story around a little bit here on the network. But Shorty, your final take though about the entire incident with BG and Glory, and also how much of an impact though did Glory's absence really though have on this Tulsa team, and why?
I mean, the entire situation with Glory Johnson and Brittany Griner was just a complete mess. I think I previously said on another show, it was just two young guns moving things too fast, and everything just ended in haywire. So now we're left off with, you know, Glory having her twins, and soon coming up next is a paternity suit to see if Brittany is liable to pay for, Glory's twins. But I think her impact on the team, I mean, they miss her. I mean, they missed her, during the season. I mean, she was a big part of what they did. I mean, she was so athletic, even though sometimes she played a little bit crazy. Still, I mean, she was a great player, and they missed her a lot. I feel like they would have achieved much more with her in the lineup this year versus, having her out. But, I mean, yeah, it was one crazy year for the Tulsa Shock when it came to the whole Glory Johnson situation.
Crystal, you can kind of tell when the Shock played this year that they really missed Glory's presence on the floor, and of course it pretty much went up in smoke and flames and and broken glass and smoke and mirrors when of course we found out about the altercation between Glory and Brittany at their house in Goodyear, Arizona. Crystal, in your mind though, I mean obviously other than the situation between those two, how much though did the Shock really miss her presence on the floor in your mind, and why?
Well, first things first, I want to say prayers up to Glory Johnson's child who had surgery yesterday. Today, one of them. You can tell that her presence was missed. I mean, they really didn't have an athletic big like that. They didn't have a big that can run up and down the court smoothly, and that's what Glory Johnson was for them. Like Shorty said, she's really athletic. Even though she did play crazy, she could stretch the floor, she could shoot. She pretty much was their go-to post, and you could tell during the playoffs especially that they really could have used her down there.
Tanisha and Crystal, as you guys may know, I was at Game 1 when the Mercury hosted the Shock at the Talking Stick Resort Arena in Phoenix, and I mean, obviously, just going there as a casual fan, not really picking sides in that series, but, just going there just to, see a game, one more game for the season. And, I mean, honestly, seeing Tulsa play that night in Phoenix, I mean, that team, was, really, it was they were a rock, they were a rock in a hard place, when you have Honestly Sims, scoring the first 12 points for the Shock in that playoff game, they ultimately lose by 30. You knew that something was missing, and we'll get to another, of course, guys, a pretty actually, I should have went to this one first, but Glory popped up in my head first, though. Of course, guys, the other news though surrounding the Shock, I guess even worse news other than Glory Johnson being out for the whole season, of course, is the franchise relocating again from Tulsa to Dallas to the Dallas-Fort Worth area for the 2016 season, playing their games on a college campus in Cedar Park, Texas, at the University of Texas at Arlington. Shorty, for a team that's already moved once and they're moving again, obviously you feel bad for the people of Tulsa that did show up to the games, whether it was a lot of people or in some cases a very empty venue at the BOK Center in Tulsa. But Shorty, for a team that's already moved once from Detroit to Tulsa, they're moving again though. Shorty, Shorty, in your mind though, how much does the same team relocating again hurt the league in your mind, and why?
I mean, I don't really think it hurts the league much. Maybe it may leave a bad perception when it comes to that franchise, which is the Tulsa Shock. But in this case, I think the move was much needed. I mean, we talk about attendance. their attendance was horrible. I mean, it's very well known that Oklahoma isn't necessarily a women's basketball town. So the move was definitely necessary. Going to Dallas Fort Worth, where I think the interest will be higher, attendance will be higher, and I think they'll perform better in a better city. I mean, you talk about not just the team, but then the opposing players. It's a known fact that majority of all the other opposing players in the WNBA couldn't stand going to Tulsa.
Not at
We
all.
know Christy Tolliver was one of them. She publicly expressed her disdain going to Tulsa. So I think this move will be better for them as a franchise overall.
Crystal, in spite of it, perhaps being a positive, though, I think it's more of a negative that the same franchise moves again. Obviously we've seen, teams move once, but you don't see teams move twice or three times in their franchise history. I think that's what I'm getting at more so is you've already moved once. And last I checked, when you play golf, you only get one mulligan. You don't get two mulligans if you have a terrible tee shot like I do 9 times out of 10 on the golf course. Crystal, though, in your mind, does it really help or does it hurt the league more when a team moves more than one time in your mind, and why?
Well, the first time they moved was because Detroit, as a city, was bankrupt. Which the owners in the city just couldn't have the team anymore. It was losing the money. But in this case, I think it was long overdue. I mean, I don't know if you know, a couple of years ago, a lot of players were getting staph infection from the locker rooms and the showers in the BOK Center, and there was a lot of commotion on whether they were going to change venues or not, which they didn't. And like Shorty said, a lot of players have expressed their distaste for Tulsa. I mean, even Erin Phillips said she'd rather go to Dallas than Tulsa. So I think Dallas would be better for them, better women's basketball fans, better for women's basketball than Oklahoma. I think putting them in Oklahoma was kind of pushing a little bit. And just now this year, their fans started to come out more. And so I think Tulsa was kind of a bad move, but you don't know unless you try it.
Exactly. I mean, you don't know unless you don't try, or if you don't try and all, or the old saying from the late great Eddie Guerrero, the great professional wrestler. I mean, if you're not cheating, you're not trying, basically. It's fine. But guys, I think though as well that I think if they would have been in Oklahoma City, maybe if they would have perhaps become a counterpart of the Thunder, that it could have helped out. But being in Tulsa, and I kind of know firsthand too about pro teams failing in the city of Tulsa. There was a team that the San Diego Sockers, one of the teams I do work for and cover for indoor soccer, played at the same arena as the Shock, and had problems too with either attendance and also those players also caught the same staph infections as well that you guys brought up as well. So obviously the venue may have been one part though, but as well though, I think though that when they go to Dallas, okay, obviously pro team at a college venue is weird, but I think though that you already had women's basketball established in Dallas many, many years ago when Ann Myers was a member of the Dallas Diamonds, of one of the very first women's professional basketball leagues. Shorty, I thought perhaps Dallas, maybe Mark Cuban was perhaps involved, but I don't know about them playing at the American Airlines Center when I first really thought about the story and read it and seen them going to Dallas. So Shorty, to mind though, I know that they had some problems with attendance in Tulsa. Does the college venue help the Shock, or whatever their name will be, when they go to Dallas? Does it help them a bit more that it's not going to be an oversized venue that they're playing at like it was in Tulsa? What do you think and why?
I mean, personally, I do not like them moving into a college venue because, I mean, it's a pro team and it almost makes them look like they're not a pro team, playing in a college venue. But I mean, they had to pretty much take what was available. So, college arena, well, there it is. And other than that, as far as Mark Cuban goes, I mean, I'm pretty sure he had nothing to do with the process of them moving to Dallas Fort Worth, because they, asked him time and time again, would he, bring a women's team, to Dallas, to have them as an addition to the Mavericks. he said no, but he would happily welcome a WNBA team if it was ever to move to the Dallas area. Well, now here's their chance. So, even though he didn't want a women's team, I do think he will be supportive because he said he would support a WNBA franchise in the Dallas area.
And Crystal, if my jigsaw memory serves me correct, Mark Cuban was the same guy who said he would draft Brittany Griner for the Dallas Mavericks if he had the chance to draft her in an NBA draft. So obviously, Mark Cuban is probably an owner I would want to play for because, he's outspoken and he's a great guy to, he's probably one of my favorite owners other than maybe Dr. Jerry Buss or Jerry Colangelo, of course, with the Suns, of course, and Steve Nash in those days. But obviously, as Shorty brought up, though, Crystal, obviously, we know that Mark was probably not going to be involved, but obviously I think, though, that with them going to Dallas, that perhaps he will probably extend his hand out perhaps in some small capacity to the Dallas franchise, perhaps. Again, I'm not saying he's going to, but again, perhaps he will. But, Crystal, in your mind, though, as we brought up, though, does the college venue help or hurt the Shock playing their games at a small, reduced-size venue as opposed to Mark Cuban's arena, American Airlines Center in downtown Dallas? Your thoughts and why?
It depends. It depends. I mean, it depends on what the Shock, which I still think they're going to be the Shock. It depends on what their fan base will look like in Dallas. I think during preseason games they're going to figure that out. Because certain teams, like Phoenix, they can play in a big venue and sell it out. LA, Minnesota, teams like that. But with this team going to Dallas, you have to pretty much just see. I mean, nobody knows for sure yet until they actually play a game.
Tanisha, I kind of know the Dallas-Fort Worth area a little bit, not as good as I know my hometown or how I know downtown Los Angeles or the area around Madison Square Garden. I do know, though, that there are some other venues that could host the Dallas team. I'm not going to jump to conclusions and say the Shock, because they could be called something else. You guys never know what it could be. They could be called the Desperados or the Diamonds again, for all that I know. But Shorty, in mind, though, there is a venue that the Dallas Stars, the NHL team in the Dallas area, their AHL team plays at an arena in Cedar Park, Texas, pretty close to where the Shock are playing at. Obviously, there is the American Airlines Center. There's also, I believe, perhaps, but I don't think anymore, that there was Reunion Arena for a long time with the Stars and played for a long time along with the Mavericks. Tanisha, do you perhaps think, though, that perhaps the Shock may use the college venue as a one-time or like a temporary home, perhaps, where they find perhaps a bigger and better venue in the Dallas area, perhaps? What do you think?
I think that's pretty interesting, and I do agree that they could, use the college venue at first to possibly test it out to, see where else they might be placed. But if not, it could possibly be permanent. But to me, I do agree with Crystal that I think it'll depend on the fan base and attendance wise, because you definitely don't want them. I mean, I just stated that I don't, pretty much like them at a college venue. But I mean, if I definitely don't want them moving to like a bigger venue where they're not going to sell out, where you're going to see a lot of empty seats, the replay of what happened to them at the BOK Center. So if, the college venue, suits them as far as attendance goes, where you don't see a lot of empty seats, then, yeah, I think it'll be a good move for them.
Crystal, what do you think? Do they perhaps use the arena at the University of Texas at Arlington, the arena there at the college venue? Do you think that perhaps they may use that venue as a ultimatum of a temporary home, and then perhaps, depending on how they do the first couple of years attendance-wise, that they may go to a bigger and better venue somewhere in the Dallas-Fort Worth area? What do you think?
I can actually see that. UT Arlington has a pretty decent-sized stadium, for what it seems. I can see them using that as a temporary, place of, as you could say, play. I mean, like I said, it all depends on how well they do. Do I think Dallas is going to do well? Somewhat, kind of, yeah. I feel like if, that they get marketed the right way, then fans will come. But it's only time will tell.
Only time will tell, indeed. Okay, guys. Getting back to, so we've talked about, a negative and a negative. Here's one more negative for you guys. Obviously, what I believe, and I think that we all agree, the injury that ended the Shock season was, of course, when Skylar Diggins went down in a heap and ripped her ACL in very scary and ugly fashion at a home game in Tulsa against the Seattle Storm. And shortly after that, everything went down south, and it was a free fall for a long time for the Shock. They never fully recovered from losing Skylar. Shorty, I never would have imagined in my entire life watching sports, and it's been 21 years of me watching sports, that one single player in a team sport going down to injury would derail an entire team's season, and that's exactly what happened, sadly, with the Shock this season. Shorty, how much did Skylar's injury really derail the Shock season in your mind, and why?
Well, I will say that, it affected the team pretty bad because she was their leading scorer, led the team in PPG, 17.8 points per game, led the team in assists with 5 assists per game. Also, she led the team in three-point percentage, shooting 40.8 from 3. So definitely they missed her because she, nearly led the team in all statistical categories. But, she was their proven leader. And, when she was with the team, they got off to a hot start. It was Tulsa and Connecticut. Both of those teams got off to a hot start. The Shock starting off 8-1. Diggins goes down, and then there was a stretch from July 15th to August 12th where they went on a 10-game losing streak. 10 games. That was insane. But then they ultimately bounced back near the end of the season. They went on an 8-2 run to eventually, make the playoffs for the first time in, Tulsa Shock history. So, even though everything still panned out for them, they lost a big puzzle piece in Skylar Diggins.
Crystal, the Shock really lost the heart and soul of this franchise when Skylar went down with that knee injury, which again was in very frightening and scary fashion when the Shock were hosting Seattle at BOK Center. And as Shorty brought up, though, a 10-game skid after such a great start, so much promise. It's almost like having, victory in your hand and it gets taken out of your hands. Having victory taken out of your hands, from the jaws of defeat, basically, is what this happened to Tulsa. And, I like I said, though, I've never seen a team lose one player and proceed to, lose the next 10 games, in succession like they did, that 0-10 run. Crystal, in your mind, how much did Skylar's loss really affect the Shock in your mind, and why?
Well, pretty much you said it. Tulsa was the baby that got the kitty, and they could never, they got there and do a temper tantrum pretty much. It kind of lets you know where Tulsa. It kind of let you know where Tulsa's mind was, because Skylar Diggs was a huge player for them, but they could never bounce back. It seems like pretty much they relied on Skylar a lot, and not necessarily a bad thing, but with the young team, you have to try to figure it out. You got to try to, get those opportunities where you don't have to rely on a player so much. And Skylar, like Shorty said, Skylar almost led in everything, and one player. It's sad to say that one player was pretty much the end-all, be-all for them, and they could never. Luckily, they got it together a little bit, but they could just never fully get it together.
Tanisha, looking back over some of the roster procurement, obviously we've talked negatives here. One more negative for you guys, and that's a very sad story to hear. But again, Tiffany Jackson-Jones, by the way, made public a few days ago. She's been diagnosed with breast cancer. And Shorty, if there was, if there was ever a time for this to happen to someone, obviously the month of October, as we all know, is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and just seeing some of the photos that she was posting, of course she's already shaved her head and stuff. Shorty, if it's not, it's almost like if it's not one thing with the Shock, it's something else, and this is something that absolutely is a very tragic story to hear again of, a player of the WNBA family battling, her own internal problems, of course, with having, a disease that has touched all of us and is hanging out in some very small capacity, perhaps. Shorty, any thoughts about this at all, or what?
Oh my goodness. Just give me a second because this is the first time of me hearing this tonight. Oh my goodness. She's
Oh,
been
you broke some news to her.
diagnosed with brand. Yeah, it was breaking news basically. But you know, Tiffany Jackson Jones has always, been a fighter. From, what I've seen so far in her WNBA career, she battled back, through pregnancy, and then she came back through, through injuries. So I'm pretty sure she'll bounce back and, fight through this horrible disease, and, she'll hopefully continue to, play the WNBA, or if not, I'm pretty sure she'll be successful wherever she goes.
Crystal, I mean, like I said, I mean, if it's not one thing with the shock going on, it's something else, and this obviously is something that, kind of as I kind of saw, kind of popped out of the blue a little bit from one of my friends who operates a Tulsa Shock fan page. Photo that actually was shared um, on the on her page. It says, just going through this, she says the fan page for the Tulsa Shock reads, Tulsa Shock fans send prayers up for our lovely at Tiff the Diva 33. She is battling cancer. Of hashtags of prayers, fight the fight, Marley's mom, and Shock basketball. I mean, Crystal, I mean, this is something that I think the entire WNBA fan base and family is going to rally around for the entire 2016 season, and even up until Tiff does return to the floor. I mean, as Tori said, though, I mean, giving birth to, a child is one deal, of course, but, coming back from this, is something that I cannot imagine happening to anyone in the league or even someone that I know very well. Crystal, any thoughts about this at all?
Um, Cancer is something that's now near and dear to me, especially with what my mom went through. So that's tough. Hope for the best. Be praying for her because that's not easy to deal with. Like Shorty said, she's a fighter, so hopefully she can fight her way through this one and come out victorious. Cancer's, especially with losing Flip Saunders this week, that cancer sucks. I mean, there's no other way to put it. I mean, I hope there's a cure for it soon, and I hope she gets better and recovers quickly.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, as someone that has lost, has lost grandparents to cancer of the liver and other forms of cancer, obviously, something that you dread to see is someone, whether you know them, whether you know them well or not, to see someone with cancer in any capacity, of course, heartbreaking to see. And again, we are, of course, praying for Tiffany Jackson Jones and Tulsa Shock, soon to be in Dallas, of course, for a full recovery and hopefully. She can knock one out of the ballpark and get past this battle with cancer. Also, guys, I mean, if it's, like I said, if it's not one thing, it's another, Shorty. Obviously, the other talking point, of course, with the Shock, Liz Cambage, who was their prized possession a few years ago, ultimately does not come back to the Shock this season due to overseas commitments. Plus, kicked off the Australian national team for attending a concert festival and missing the first training camp for the Australian national team for prep for 2015 off-season tournaments, plus, of course, the 2016 Olympic Games. Shorty, obviously, we know that we had kind of talked, all three of us kind of talked last year about perhaps her resentment towards the Shock and being in Tulsa, as we said earlier on in the block. But, Shorty, I mean, if we thought BG and Glory was bad, this is, just as bad of a nightmare for the Shock, dealing with the player who's been disgruntled and been very outspoken about not playing for the Shock because of either overseas commitments or even now getting kicked off the national team in Australia for attending a concert festival. Shorty, your thoughts about this whole thing and why?
Oh my goodness. I mean, man, Liz Cambage had so much promise. I mean, when she played, her first, I think, 2 years at least, maybe 3 with the franchise. I mean, she's big. I mean, before there was a lot of hoopla about BG being 6'8". I mean, she was one of the first, most recent 6'8" players to come in the league, and we thought, she was going to be this next great big thing, but she just faltered. I mean, of course, like it was already stated, she doesn't really care for the Shock organization, but with that whole fiasco with her ditching her national team for a music concert. I mean, it just leads me to believe that she just doesn't care about basketball at all, much less the WNBA. I just think she wants to, do her own thing and do whatever just because she can. And I mean, it's not leaving a good image, on her. It's making her look bad if she cares. And we know that her teammates called her out on that whole fiasco, and she got all up in her feelings and things like that. But I mean, she played around and she pretty much paid the price for it. But I'm not sure what's going to happen with her in the future, but hopefully she'll start taking basketball seriously, because we all would like to see her on the floor, but it's just not happening right now.
Crystal, I mean, the shock, I think, since moving to Tulsa have become the land of misfit toys, sadly. They really have. I mean, what they have pretty much endured since going to Tulsa has been rough, between injuries, fights, so on and so forth, and now, of course, a disgruntled player, who was their poster child, their prized possession. And ultimately, as we said, of course, okay, had the overseas commitment to miss one season, but of course, then, sticking with basketball, I mean, completely ditching day one of training camp for the national team for a music festival is absolutely inexcusable. I mean, I don't care what it may have been, whether she was in a band or whatever it may have been. You could have put that off for a different time and place to go and, do what you're supposed to be doing, that's playing basketball. I mean, I really don't get, how and why you would do that. I mean, obviously, I know that we probably at some point have put off something for more important reasons. I know I've done that a few times because of my work schedule. But Crystal, your thoughts about Liz Cambage, what do you think and why?
Liz was trying to get her swerve on. She was like, I'm having a good time. I mean, Liz was like, hey, I'm about to go to this little concert real quick. Ain't nobody gonna find out. You know what I'm saying? I'm just gonna have me a little fun. Yeah, I think Liz is just completely not about basketball no more. I think she was just doing it for her paycheck. She got her paycheck. She signed that huge deal in China. I don't even know if she played in China since she signed that deal. I'll have to look that up. But Liz isn't about that basketball. She just wants to be famous and for all the wrong reasons. Like, she's not really an icon in basketball. Hey, I feel like if you guys got in it as dash or as they're soon to be, they should just cut her. Let her go. Don't what you're paying for.
In my mind, if you're not 100% committed to whatever you're doing, broadcasting, playing sports, doing vlogs, whatever it may be, there's a different route to go instead of, being disgruntled and, putting it off for some other type of event. I mean, I know that there's been plenty of times where I didn't want to, play baseball one day, but, at least I had some type of explanation as to why I wasn't going there, and it was for a more important cause, whether it was a hockey game I was announcing or I had to go and make up a test I missed because I was sick at school one day, missing practice, and not just any type of practice, Tanisha and Crystal, missing the first practice for the Australian national team. I mean, you're not talking about missing the first day of Tulsa training camp, the first day for the national team, the bigger and brighter stage, where the lights are on brighter than they are on the WNBA. Completely missing that is absolutely inexcusable, and I personally think that Tulsa will do away with her as the Australian national team did, because I mean that is something that absolutely cannot happen. I don't, and I really don't care what her reason was to, going to that festival in the first place. I don't care if she's had tickets ever since she was born, for heaven's sakes. There's bigger and better things that are way more important than going to other events that you can go to any time of the year, and for that to happen, absolutely cannot happen ever again. In my honest opinion, I mean, and whatever it may take for them to, and Shorty, I agree though that I think it was good though that that someone kind of put her in her place and said, look, there's a bigger thing for you to do, as opposed to going to this music festival. And again, I'm sure though that she was probably not all there 100% with basketball. Like I said, though, Tanisha, there's a different way to go if you're not 100% committed to something. You can step away for a bit and take a break, like Candace Parker did, for the first half of the Spark season. But Shorty, could Liz perhaps have done something different to get away from basketball as opposed to going to that music festival and ultimately maybe losing her only shot to make the national team, or at least going back on it for Rio in 2016? Your thoughts about how she could have handled the situation a bit better?
I mean, most definitely. I mean, if she was stressed out or tired in any way, she could have, she could have taken a break, took a mini vacation, meditated, do whatever, just at the end of the day, she had a responsibility and she offered on it. That I think she just wants to play basketball just to say, oh, I'm a basketball player, for the notoriety. I mean, she isn't really interested deeply into, playing the sport. And if that's a reason, then maybe she should, find something else to get into.
Crystal, is there, in your mind, obviously Liz has burnt her bridges with not only Tulsa, but with the Australian national basketball team and the Australian basketball federations down there for how she was disgruntled towards the franchise and the national team and the country, basically, in my mind. Could she have done something different to get away from the game, in your mind, and how and why?
Definitely could have done something different. I mean, what she pretty much did was leave her teammates hanging. Liz was most likely a really huge part of that team, and now she's not there. So, I mean, she said she felt bad about it or felt some type of way about it, tried to appeal it, but I mean, her actions prove otherwise. You can't just go to a concert. I don't care if it's Beyonce, Tina Turner, YouTube, Michael Jackson. You can't do that, especially when they have an obligation. So, I mean, her loss is the only thing I could say. I mean, if she wanted to get away from it, like Shorty said, she could have meditated, prayed, went on a vacation, play for a little bit. You don't go to a music festival the way that you have practice. That was
I mean, in my case, I'm over here wearing a 90s jersey. I don't care if it's 98 degrees. I don't care if it's NSYNC, Backstreet Boys, Boys to Men, Aaron Carter. I don't care who it is. There is a different way for you to go to get your mind off something. And frankly, if I was in that situation, I would have gone to the beach and have, gone to my second home and have surfed, for hours and hours on end, or would have gone out and, embarrassed myself on the golf course. I would have found some other way to get out of this chair and get this mic out of my hand if I was not in a comfortable position sitting here right now talking to you folks, as you guys may know about how uncomfortable the former co-host was sitting in the co-anchor's chair on this program. There's a different way for you to break away and give yourself a break from what you may be doing, whether it's schoolwork, whether it's college, whether it's perhaps relationship problems are going on in your life. There's a different way for you to approach a situation that you may not feel your best in right now. And obviously with Liz Cambage, she chose a music festival over a more important date, which was, of course, the first day of training camp for the Australian national team. And as we said here, we have kind of come to the conclusion that she has really burnt her bridges, but not only the shot, but also with the national team as well at this point in time. Shorty, obviously, though, it was kind of a bittersweet symphony for the Shock to kind of go out in the sunset to Dallas. Of course, the team got to the postseason for the first time in Tulsa history, at least, after enduring years upon years of single-win seasons between going 3-31 their second year in Tulsa with a very, very rugged season that they had there and kind of improving a little bit, but ultimately, though, made the postseason. Shorty, your final take, though, about how the Shock kind of gave their fans in Tulsa something to cheer about for their last year being in Tulsa before they do pack and move to Arlington next year. Your final thoughts on the Shock 2015 season and why?
I mean, I definitely think they improved. They improved this year. I mean, after spending so many years being pretty much the laughing stock of the WNBA, the punching bag of the Western Conference. I mean, when, they made so many great moves through the franchise history in Tulsa, whether that was through draft picks. Finally, this year, they had a good free agency. And also bringing in Fred Williams as head coach. I think that was a big deal for them when Atlanta, dropped him out of nowhere and Tulsa made the right choice by picking him up because, I mean, bringing in his, system, and the players adapted to it very well. I mean, they thrived. And, we knew that, they were coming. We knew like sooner or later, they were going to be a threat in, the Western Conference. And they were close to making the playoffs last year. And this year, they finally came through. So I think, they'll continue to improve when they go to Dallas, and I think they're going to become a legitimate threat in the Western Conference. I mean, they already made the playoffs, but I can definitely see them going, further, in the coming years because they're so young, they're so talented, they got so many good guards on the team, and also Courtney Paris have definitely improved throughout her years being with the Shock. So, Tulsa is coming. They're coming.
Crystal, final thoughts about the Shock's 2015 season. Obviously, as I said, though, kind of a bittersweet symphony of sorts for them to kind of give the fans in Tulsa something to cheer for after having many rough years. Like I said, they're going 3-31 one season while they were in Tulsa, and for them to kind of give the fans a good little send off with a playoff appearance and a over 500 record, of course, with Fred Williams coming in from Atlanta. Crystal, final take on the Shock season and why?
I think, like you said, bittersweet. I mean, they started off so well. I think all of us in this hangout actually agreed that they would be making the playoffs this year. I just didn't think they'd end up being, what was it? It was like 18-16 or something like that. I have to look. I have to look at the record again. But,
You're correct.
okay, yeah, I thought so. See, I'm smart. No. I, for a moment there, when they were 8-1, I thought, this team could be really dangerous. And unfortunately, the ACL injury happened. But they were still a little dangerous. They didn't play like they did the years prior. I think because they knew that they were relocating, they tried very hard to bring the city of Tulsa a championship or to bring the city of Tulsa some happiness. And unfortunately, it ended when they got smashed by the Phoenix Mercury, 2-0. So I think it is bittersweet. I think they did the fans in the city of Tulsa a little bit of justice this year. The city of Tulsa should hang their heads high, even though they're losing their team. But I think it is bittersweet.
It's bittersweet indeed, for a team to kind of, that had endured so, that were, the doormats, the punching bags, the irrelevant team in the Western Conference for those, many years where they were, scuffling to get wins every time I turned around, and to see them really give the fans in Tulsa some type of good send-off. Obviously, it started with so much promise, of course, before Skylar Diggins got hurt with the ACL tear. Just seeing that team, really finally give them something to cheer for, and obviously they ran into a bigger and better team in the Phoenix Mercury, of course, who swept them in 2 games to end their 2015 campaign and also end the WNBA tenure of the city of Tulsa, Oklahoma. With that, though, folks, we want to tell you folks that quickly the upcoming slate of shows for teams to preview and recap. Next Monday will be the Washington Mystics, and as of right now, Thursday and Friday while I'm up in Los Angeles will be the Phoenix Mercury and the Indiana Fever. And again, folks, we are trying our best, still holding out hope to try to get Indiana Fever player Laisha Clarendon onto the program, probably trying to get her on next Friday when we do come back here in Los Angeles. And again, folks, to reiterate again, that schedule update again, next Thursday and Friday, both shows will be done in Los Angeles at the Lux Center City Hotel, because I'll be up in L.A. on a little bit of a business trip for a 2-day broadcasting convention. With that, though, folks, until Monday night, have a safe night, drive home safely. Thanks for stopping by and tuning in, and have a great Halloween on Saturday. And good night now. This has been the WNBA 365 Network. We have a WNBA covering anything and everything in regards to the WNBA and the women's basketball universe. For Crystal Thomas and Tanisha Stewart, all up in Los Angeles, Callum McClurg, the wannabe Steve Nash down here in San Diego. We will again see you folks back here on Monday night. But until then, again, have a great night, a great weekend, and also have a great Halloween. See you folks back here on Monday night. Till then, good night. Bye-bye.